In this video, my intent is to explain the difference between VLOOKUP and demonstrate how simple XLOOKUP is. Okay, so what we have over here, let's first try to understand the data. We have, of course, the student names and email addresses, which are irrelevant in this case. What we have is the list of cities for which I want to find the respective states. In another part of the Excel sheet, I have the entire range of the cities as well as the states. Okay. What is the intent? The intent is to first look up one of the city, find that city from this list, say, for example, over here, the same city, go towards the right, find the state. Eventually, that state gets populated in this place is the method which we do as human beings. When we talk about a VLOOKUP, there is no difference. It does the same thing. So what am I going to do? I say VLOOKUP. Good. Okay. Look up value. So first we look up at the city, and then I enter a comma. The moment I enter a comma, it will prompt me to enter the second part of the function table array. So what is a table array? The entire list of cities and the states. So I just highlighted that this way. So I have done this. Again, a comma over here. Now in VLOOKUP, the third part is a little tricky. In the sense, we have selected the entire table array comprising of the cities and the states. Now, this is where your universe is right now. This is only the part of the universe we should look at, which means only the city and the state, this table array. Within this, the name of the city happens to be column 1. This is the universe, right? So column city of the name of the city is column 1. If that is the case, state becomes column 2. So, which is why I say 2 over here. There is also something known as a true, which is an approximate match, or false, which is an exact match. So in this case, we use false or 0 to enter this, and we get the respective state. I use the fill handle, double click, and we get the thing. What happens over here is in A, because I've deliberately used a city which does not exist. So we get not applicable or not found. Okay. Now we look at doing the same thing again using XLOOKUP. So I will say XLOOKUP. Lookup value remains the same. The city, I click over here, comma. This is where the differentiation happens between VLOOKUP. What does it say? Lookup array. Now, here is a point which you understand. You will understand the lookup very easily. Remember the two things. One is a value, lookup value. Whenever you come across a word value, you have to remember that it has to be only one cell, only one cell. However, any place that you come across which says array, it means a series or a range of cells. It could be a column, it could be a row. Okay, good enough. Now, when we talk about this, what do we see over here? Lookup value. So one cell. Again, it says lookup array. When we say lookup over here, what are we referring to? City. Again, the same name lookup, but an array, which means the range of cities only. Right? Again, a comma. The return array. Do you see? So in the earlier case with VLOOKUP, we had a table, city, state together. City was column 1, state was column 2. In this case, we have separated them. We are looking at them individually. In XLOOKUP, we also don't need to add the 2 because there is no concept of 2 or 3 because there is no referencing between the city and state. If city is 1, then state is 2, etc. There's no referencing. That's not required. Also, there is the fact that it does not require you to populate that if it is an exact match or an approximate match. So all that I do is close the bracket and we have the response. I use the fill handle, and of course the answer is going to be exactly the same. Now, this is where the interesting aspect about VLOOKUP happens. Now, assuming in this case, I realize that, oh, after the city, I would like to add the pin code. So I'm going to insert a column for pin code. Now see what happens. The moment I go here and I click on insert, look at what happens on VLOOKUP. Okay, so I'm here. I want to insert a column. So click. The moment I clicked, what happens to VLOOKUP? 0. Why? Because when we defined the VLOOKUP, we had said this is the table and you have to look at column number 2. What is there in column number 2 right now? Nothing. The data has moved. It is not finding any data, which means this is the problem. Whereas in a XLOOKUP, everything is avoided. There are additional benefits, but right now I'm just focusing on the fundamental things. Next, if we have these cities and states in a different tab on the same workbook or in a completely different workbook, it'll work in the same manner. Okay. Now, if we have understood this, we are going to talk about a little complicated thing because here we are just looking at one part of the data, which is vertical, and which is why it is known as vertical lookup or VLOOKUP. XLOOKUP, the importance is the fact that XLOOKUP looks at horizontal and vertical together. It has the capability, which is why it's known as XLOOKUP. Also, if we want to look at in Excel, while VLOOKUP is very popular, many participants or many people do not know that there is something also known as HLOOKUP. Yes, if the data is horizontal. So we have to do it twice, horizontal, vertical. But in an XLOOKUP, it can do both simultaneously, and that is what I'm going to show you. Let's go to sheet number 2. And this is exactly the power of XLOOKUP. Okay, so what is the intent over here? The intent over here is to find the expenses. So what is the data? The data has got some departments and the months. Each month, each department has some expenses, incurs some expenses, and this is what we see over here are the various expenses. So we have to write a formula where it is going to pick up a particular expense for a particular department for a particular month. So how do we do it? Okay. So here what I'm going to do, I'm also going to introduce the concept of data validation. So what do I do? Department, month, just so that I don't have to retype, I'm going to do data validation. So under data validation, you should be going into data tools, going to data validation. It is a list. So I click on the list. It asks me the source. So I don't type it. I just highlight this, that this is the list. And all I do is, okay. The moment I do, okay, do you see the drop down? Right. We do a similar thing for the month. I repeat, data validation. Again, I say it's a list. What is the source? Jan to December. And I say, okay. Here I'm going to say expenses. So the formula which I'm going to enter will appear over here. Okay. Let me highlight it. Good. Okay. So department, which could be sales for the month of May. So ideally, expenses should appear over here, which it should find from this data. Okay. So what do? We write an XLOOKUP formula. So we say XLOOKUP, lookup value. First, I would say the department, whatever appears over here, comma, lookup array. We spoke about it in the earlier part of the video. We spoke about lookup array. So my array over here is going to be these guys, comma. Now, I was in the earlier case, we were entering the data. Here we do not. Here we do something as an additional X lookup, second time. So within a lookup, you have another lookup, and this is known as a nested X lookup. Lookup within a lookup, a nested X lookup. Good enough? Okay. Now what do we do? It again asks for a lookup value. So the month is going to be my lookup value, comma, lookup array. These guys, the months are going to be the lookup array, comma. Now what do I have to do? Well, the return array, which is common for both the lookups. So what is a return array? This range is going to be my return array. There are two open brackets, 1 and 2. So what do I do? Two close brackets, and I say enter. Good. So let's look at it. Sales May 12599. Sales in May 12599. Let me change this department to, say, for example, operations in the month of, say, for example, October 12012. Operations in the month of October 12012. If you want another example, let me take finance for, let's say, February 22089, finance for February 22089. So this is how easy it can get, and this is possible by using nested XLOOKUP. I hope you have found value. In case you want to know about such uh, time savers or things which can improve productivity, the learning and development teams the heads of these teams could reach out to me. And I do a lot of corporate sessions on these as well as AI to write complex formulas. And I would be happy to train your teams. Thank you so much.